It was a calm January evening in 2012 when the Costa Concordia, one of the largest cruise ships in the world at the time, set out on what should have been a routine 7-day Mediterranean cruise. On board were over 4,000 people, passengers looking forward to a week of luxury, and crew members going through the motions of another voyage. The mood was festive. There was music, dancing, fine dining. No one suspected the disaster that was about to unfold. The ship's captain, Francesco Schettino, had planned a deviation from the normal route. He wanted to perform a salute, a maneuver that would bring the ship unusually close to the island of Giglio, where a former crew member lived. It was meant to be a dramatic gesture, a show of seamanship. The Concordia, nearly 3 football fields in length, lit up like a floating city, sailed dangerously close to the rocky coastline. At 9:45 p.m., disaster struck. The hull scraped a jagged rock formation beneath the surface, tearing a gash more than 50 meters long. Seawater surged into the lower decks. Within minutes, electrical power failed. The engine stopped. The ship began to list, tipping to one side. Panic quickly replaced the festive atmosphere. Passengers who had been sipping wine moments earlier were now scrambling to find life jackets in darkened hallways. Crew members, many of whom weren't properly trained for such an emergency, gave conflicting instructions. Some told passengers to return to their cabins. Others began lowering lifeboats. Chaos reigned. There was no coordinated evacuation order until nearly an hour later, far too late for a vessel sinking this fast. Meanwhile, Captain Schettino delayed raising the alarm. He didn't immediately contact the Coast Guard, and he downplayed the seriousness of the situation when he did. When asked if the ship was in distress, he claimed they were merely experiencing a blackout. In reality, the ship was drifting toward shore, completely out of control. By the time the order to abandon ship was officially given, the Costa Concordia was already tilted so severely that lifeboats on one side could no longer be launched. Passengers jumped into the frigid sea. Others were lowered down ropes, clinging to anything they could find. Some made it to shore by swimming in the dark, guided only by the lights of Giglio's tiny harbor. At 11:30 p.m., with evacuation still underway, Captain Schettino made a decision that would become infamous. He left the ship. A captain abandoning his sinking vessel is seen as a grave betrayal of maritime tradition. When the Coast Guard learned he was ashore, they called him on his phone and ordered him to return and coordinate the rescue. His response, and the Coast Guard's furious reply, "Vada a bordo, cazzo," or "Get back on board, damn it," was caught on tape and spread across the world. But Schettino never went back. By the early hours of the morning, the Costa Concordia had settled on its side in shallow water, partially submerged. The scene was surreal. A luxury cruise ship lying helplessly on its flank, lights still glowing from portholes now pointing toward the sky. 32 people died that night. Some drowned, others were trapped inside. Families were separated in the chaos. Survivors would later describe the fear, confusion, and disbelief they felt, not only at the accident itself, but at the way the evacuation was handled. The investigation that followed exposed shocking failures in training, communication, and leadership. Captain Schettino was later found guilty of multiple charges, including manslaughter and abandoning ship. He was sentenced to 16 years in prison. The ship's operators were also heavily criticized for a culture that valued spectacle and entertainment over safety. Removing the Costa Concordia from the reef where it had come to rest became one of the largest and most complex salvage operations in history. Engineers had to design a custom plan to refloat and tow the wreck without breaking it apart. It took over 2 years and cost more than $1 billion. But long after the ship was gone, the legacy of that night remained. The Costa Concordia disaster wasn't just about a ship running aground. It was a lesson in arrogance, complacency, and human error. It showed how quickly things can go wrong when responsibility is ignored. And it reminded the world that even in an age of massive machines and advanced navigation systems, a single reckless decision can turn luxury into tragedy in a matter of minutes.